Hello everybody, welcome to Red Tool House. On today's video, we're going to have some fun down in the workshop and we're going to build a necessary tool we need for our timber frame project coming up. And that is a commander. That's the proper term for a really large wood mallet. So let's go down to the shop and see what we can get going. So the two key components of a good commander, of course, is the actual mallet head itself and a handle. Now, I could obviously go to any store and just buy a handle, but where's the fun in that, right? So, and I want to make my own handle, but while we're at it, I want to put a little pizzazz in it too, and strength. So what I'm going to do is laminate. Instead of just taking a solid piece of wood like hickory or ash or oak, I'm going to take oak and walnut, and we're going to make it like an Oreo sandwich out of it. Reverse, I guess. We're going to have oak on the outside, sandwich of walnut in the middle, and oak on the other side. So we're going to do that laminate, and what that'll do, not only will it give it some sort of sexiness, right? It's going to make it stronger. The lamination of that is going to make that wood that much stronger when it comes to flex and shearing, all that type of stuff. But what we need to do, I've got some walnut. Oh my goodness, this walnut, I think this came from my grandfather's workshop. So this walnut could be older than me, which is saying a lot. And then I've just got some white oak here left over, and here's actually a piece of rough sawn white oak. Make sure it's not, that goes around a bit. I think we're just going to do 36 inches, so I'm going to be able to cut off the end here and get it out of that end, and we should be okay. There's a little bit of a knot in that. We'll explore it. And then I'll have to plane it down. I want everybody to be about the same thickness. We're going about 3/4 inch thickness, and then we'll do our glue up. All right, so I got my 3 pieces to the thickness I want, and that knot was a bit bigger than what I thought it was going to be. So we're just going to see. I think I can, obviously the handle's not going to be that wide, so if I make this the outside, I may be able to snug everything to one side, so we want to go that direction. Get some glue built up on my, and then of course our walnut sandwich item there, and then our other oak piece right here, like so. All right, so let's get to gluing. Don't be afraid of the glue. Just like your mama told you about the soap when you were in high school. Don't be afraid of the soap. There we go. All right, so while I wait for that to dry, I can go ahead and start working on the mullet head, the mallet. And I have a little bit of ash, which I think would be neat, or I'm contemplating getting some maple down off the top of the rack. I have some sugar maple that I milled many, many years ago, but it actually came from a tree in my parents' front yard where I grew up. And I can remember as a kid climbing that tree. In fact, I remember a story. I broke one of the limbs off, and I thought Mom and Dad would be so mad about me breaking a limb off climbing around in it that I took the broken limb and went up and hid it in the woods. I don't know why. Anyway, I think I may use some of that because that hard maple will be nice, and we'll be able to do some contrasting woods with that as well. But the problem is it's up there. Well, I guess the first thing I need to do is knock down all the spider webs so I don't get encased in them. Believe it or not, I do knock these down
every couple months. These suckers are just so prolific. Kind of like the haunted house look around here. She is waged. Woo! Now she's loose. Well, I think this is going to work simply because I don't need a long piece. Look at the warp in that thing. That thing is twisted. Cranky. Yeah, it's getting me back for climbing in it all those years. All right, I think we can cut out some of that, plane it down, and at least get 2 true edges, and then we can work with it. Okay, this may give a better representation of just how twisted this is. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to cheat. We're going to do a planer sled. Got a piece of scrap plywood here and some screws, and we're going to try to screw down from the bottom and fix this in a certain angle. Well, daggone. That's a lot of work for a piece of sentimental wood. All right, no Rocky. All right. Doesn't leave much to work with. All right, now that we got one side smooth, we can take the other side through. And I may be better off just cutting off this last little bit. Okay, so I've got my 2 maple blocks that will make up the outside of the mallet head. And what I need is another sandwich in between, because I'm going to cheat. Instead of trying to come back and do a really deep mortise all the way through to stick my handle in, I'm going to put in 2 pieces of wood here with the proper gap I need so I can stick my handle up in. And we'll just have just a slightest little bit of an angle, just a couple degree angle. So when that goes up in, I can drive my wedges in and everything will hold tight. So I think what I'm going to do, just to keep with the theme here, we're going to go with some walnut in the sandwich. And I need a 2-inch slab, and I've got what looks to be that here that I can go through the planer. Okay, so should have my angle cut correctly now. Yeah, so if I drop those in there, yeah, so that's 2 1/8. And then what I'll do when I glue these up, just make sure that we're 2 inches here on the bottom, which we are. It actually worked out. All right, so now we just need to do some glue ups. Alrighty, yeah, I just need to make my job a little easier when it's time to put everything together and see if I can get some of this glue soaked up in here. Pass an old rag through. All right, so we have two glued up squared items here. And I think, so that's about what is that? 2 1/8 by 2 3/8. We need that to fit into this. I think I want to get it fit first and then be able to make my marks as to where I want to start working this handle down, because obviously that's too rough. We need to round it off or angle it off. And then the same with the block. I'll probably put a chamfer back to a certain point on the face of that to give it a little more of a rounded bit, and then break the edges over and stuff. Obviously don't want to take too much of my surface area off because that's the business end, but we'll definitely work this handle down quite a bit. So I think fitting is what we want to do first. Excellent. All right, so we've got a good fit in there. The bottom end, it is nice and snug. Have to bang it to get it in. Flush on the top. And of course, what we'll do is we'll cut some slits into the handle so we can drive wedges in, and that'll open that up, because this is about 2 1/4 opening versus 2 on the back. So we'll open it, make a wedge, and that keeps it from coming off. Of course, we'll glue and do all that together. But first, we need to get, while we're apart, we need to go, assembly will be one of the last things we do. We want to put all of our finish on, finished edges, everything, and put that together. So I think we're going to start on the handle. And I want to make a mark here of where the head is going to be recessed. Now the trick will be if I can get it back out. All right, well, I got all the edges chamfered on the handle, and then on the mallet head itself. Kind of got a Thor's hammer type of thing going on there. I think it's kind of cool. And everything's sanded smooth. I think what I'm going to do is a wet sanded polyurethane finish. Since this is going to be out in the elements and all that, I want it to be as strong as possible. So I'll take some, probably take 120 grit sandpaper, polyurethane, wet sand it, get it all in. Maybe put 1 or 2 coats on it, we'll see. And then if it goes together well, there's a couple other fun things I want to do to it. Okay, so we've had a day to dry with our first coat, and it's just a little bit rough from the residuals of the polyurethane wet sanding. So what I would do in the finish is just hit it with some 320, and that'll make it super smooth. But what we're going to do before we go do all the finish work, we want to get ready for assembly. And of course, it wouldn't be a Red Tool House project if we didn't complicate it. I want to do some cosmetic laser engraving on the side of the mallet head, and maybe even try some epoxy work on the handle. I've always wanted to play around with epoxy. and do those type of things. I've got the laser engraver right now testing on a test piece, and I want to laser engrave some stuff here on the side of the head. So I'm going to just get this dressed up, get it ready, and then I'll show you what I'm thinking. Then we'll do assembly, and then we'll do final finish. The thing I realized, I was laying in bed last night and realized I've got everything to keep the head from coming off the top, but I should have left a shoulder to keep it from sliding down this way. So I think what I may do is I may cut a small dado across both sides and insert a decorative piece of wood to actually make it a shoulder. And that way when we glue it in there, clamp it down, we stick this in, and it's locked in not only from the top from the wedges, but the shoulder keeps it in place there. But I'll detail all that if that's what we're going to do. But it's one of those things, design-wise, I should have left some meat on the bone here to be able to create a shoulder. I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see the fog setting in from the laser engraver. I didn't turn the dust collector on yet because I didn't want to have to talk over it, but check this out. No, and that's not from my pipe, that's from the laser engraver. Sun's hitting that perfectly. Looks kind of creepy. All right, so here's my first goofy thing I want to try. So I was doing some testing on the laser engraver, and I've got West Virginia quarters. Obviously there for a while the states were doing their own, or the mint was pressing quarters for every state. So we've got the Wild Wonderful West Virginia quarter, which is the New River Gorge Bridge. And I've polished them. I've got my fingerprints on them already. But I polished them over on my polishing machine. Get them nice and shiny. And I want to inlay those in the handle. Right at the base of the handle. I want to set those in epoxy. I think that'd be a nice little touch. And I did a test run on oak, because that's what this is, oak and oak. And I just wanted to make sure that I knew what power settings. And a quarter is exactly 24 millimeters. I checked it with my measuring device. So I've got that set. I'm not shoving that in there again because it took me 10 minutes to get it out the last time before I turned the camera on. So that's going to work. All righty. Perfect circle, I do believe. Yep, be able to beat that in there with a mallet. We're going to use some epoxy, but now we need to do the other side. All right, so the laser's working on the mallet head right now with my graphic. So while that's going to take, I think that's going to take about 40 minutes per side, then I'll go ahead and start working on doing my epoxy work. And I'm going to epoxy the quarters in, and then I'm also going to epoxy the shoulders. That way I don't have to worry about dry time. All right, I think that'll do it. I'm going to go up to the house and get some oil and oil it to get the sanding residue off. I'm really happy with how that turned out. I mean, that's going to be a little bit something to wield, but we should definitely be able to negotiate and convince timber frame elements to go in. And I've been reading the prophets in the Old Testament. That's what I've been studying here recently. So Jeremiah 23:29 jumped out at me. I thought, ooh, this will be appropriate. So that's what we burned on there. But I'll do a final shot after I got it oiled down, maybe up at the house so we can see all the nice details under good lighting.
Well, all in all, I was happy with how it turned out. If I ever built one again, I definitely would want to leave some meat on the bone for the shoulders instead of making my own. But the finish looked good. I think the details came out nice. It was fun playing with the epoxy and the laser engraver. I didn't get a good straight-on shot of the verse, but it's Jeremiah 23:29. It says, "Is not my word like fire, says the Lord, and like a hammer smashing the rocks to bits?" Anxious to try this on the timber frame project coming up. I promise we are going to do that as soon as the weather breaks. Well, I pray everyone have a great week. Thanks for watching. Take care.